Hey everybody, this is Greg Reffner on the ABSTRAKT podcast. ABSTRAKT is the only software that enables sales leaders the ability to deliver real-time coaching to their reps in the moment. And on our podcast today, we have David Dulany, CEO and founder of Tenbound. Really excited to chat with you. David, please say hi.
Hey, Greg, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk with you about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into kind of why Tenbound. So you spent many years leading sales development teams. That's where we met back at a previous company we both worked at. And you kind of left that and started Tenbound. So kind of what led you to wanting to build Tenbound and launch this great company?
Yeah, I had been in sales for a number of years, but I had always wanted to get into the tech industry. And one of the things when I got into the tech industry that I noticed was they were starting to break out the teams into the SDR team, the AE team, and the customer success team. And I had an opportunity to start one of those SDR teams at a tech company. And ever since then, I've just been fascinated with the topic. It's endlessly interesting and motivating for me to talk about it. I really think that sitting at sort of the intersection between a bunch of different departments at a company and then producing results for a company that are so important, producing that pipeline, has just fascinated me. So as we crossed paths, I was running some sales development teams at different tech companies, and it was at kind of a crossroads. And I thought, there's no sort of industry center for the sales development industry, that was kind of burgeoning at that time. There's no, well-known research and advisory firm that really focuses on that. And I said, let's go for it. So instead of going back into the corporate world, I, hung up the shingle on Tenbound, and it was me for a couple of years, doing consulting and training. And I think where it really took off was when we started to do events. We started the first sales development conference, which kind of brought together all the thought leaders in the industry and started to develop more content and research. And, now we're kind of that industry hub where if you're interested in sales development, you come to Tenbound. So
I love that. Yeah, it's when I think of SDRs, it's on top of just the dynamics within an organization itself, where you're touching so many different facets of a company. You also have kind of a unique mix of people that typically will be an SDR. So you got like recent college grads. You might have somebody wanting to get into tech sales that has been doing another career for so long. You might have someone who's wanting to get into sales leadership. Like it's this kind of interesting mix of different personas and types of people on top of the different aspects that they play within an organization. It makes for a really unique thing to kind of look at on a consistent basis. So really exciting stuff.
And there's so many aspects of it. If you think about pipeline, there's the sales pipeline that the SDR team is in charge of, and building, that connective tissue between what marketing's doing and what sales is doing, and bringing that together to build that sales pipeline. And that's critical. That's why we're here. That's why we get paid. But there's also that people pipeline, of bringing someone in. Maybe they're fresh out of college, maybe they've mid-career, and this is something that they're really good at. And you kind of bring them in, and you can see almost the next generation of the company like forming. You can go from sales development and they get into sales, they get into marketing, they get into customer success. They can do all kinds of things for the company. So there's that people pipeline as well. It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, most SDRs go into, you have a different path you can go into. So that's a really good point. So one of the things about Tenbound that seems to be unique to you guys do obviously the coaching aspect around, kind of what an SDR should do every single day. But I don't really see anybody else doing a lot of research and analysis on the industry. Why is that so important to you? And, really what made you realize that that's something that you guys wanted to do to stand out amongst the noise?
Yeah, definitely. I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, it's a relatively new industry in some ways. I mean, it like if you think about telemarketing and people doing inside sales, I mean, that goes back, from the beginning of the phone. But the new industry of sales development really just came up maybe in the last like 10 years with the advent of Salesforce.com and software as a service. So it's relatively new. So there's not a whole lot of good data out there and good research that people can use. And especially, benchmark reports. Like we just released an overall, surveyed benchmark report. So people can download that and go, am I doing a good job? Are we are
Yeah.
we making enough calls? Are we, sending enough emails and stuff like that? And they can kind of calibrate. And the other thing that I didn't see was you have like the Martech 5000 where there's all these tech companies. How do we sort these out on this big map? And I saw one for the sales industry from quote to cash and that whole thing, but I didn't see one for the sales development. So we put that together to try to bring all those products and services into one place. So stuff like that. It seems like there's a thirst for that type of information in this.
Yeah, yeah, that's a almost you set me up for the next question I want to dive into a little bit, David, around that market map for the sales development rep world. Um, I think it's been pretty for anybody in this world has seen there starts to be, I don't want to say consolidation because in my mind, consolidation means that companies are being acquired and being kind of rolled into other organizations. But I'm starting to see more and more companies branch out into other features or products that maybe start to blur the lines in terms of, excuse me, the kind of where they initially came to market. A lot of companies are, building out call recording tools that analyze calls. Do you see a world where kind of that seems to be maybe almost the answer for expansion is building more features and kind of blurring the lines in terms of where products fit in the market?
I think so. I mean, like looking back originally, in doing Google searches and stuff and going on like community, discussion boards. What the problem that we were trying to solve with the market map is like, can we go out and get like a 50,000-foot view of like the entire tech and service ecosystem in sales development and just put it like with all the little logos and stuff in one place so people could see the breadth of this. Because I think, you need like, there's 2 or 3 things that you have to have with sales development, but there's all this other stuff that's out there that's available to help people. So we wanted to get that into the first like iteration of the market map. Now we're on version 7, where exactly to your point, people are, the one tool, we have a rule that you can only be in 3 quadrants, right? Because the dream is that there is no more market map, right? It's just like you buy one product and you plug it in and it does everything for the SDR every day. And, we might get there. I mean, especially right now, like with all the changes that are happening, it is definitely happening that like one tool will do 2 or 3 things in the quadrants of the market map. So we definitely see that consolidation happening, and it gets, I mean, that's what makes it interesting, right? Because it's like we constantly see, okay, this service is bleeding into this. It's got more of this. This company just got acquired. This company merged, stuff like that. So that's what we're trying to keep ahead of.
Nice. Okay. So with all that being said, do you feel like there's some fatigue maybe happening in the market where SDR leaders, revenue leaders are going like, enough's enough. Like let us sit with what we have for a minute and let's see how this works out. People getting tired of the new technologies.
I don't think they're tired of the new technologies per se. If a tool comes in and it works and it solves a problem, they'll love it all day. I mean, like the stuff that you guys are working on. I mean, if the tool is helpful and it's moving the needle, then they're never going to get tired of it. I think what people are you're starting to see sort of a deer in the headlights, and that's why we created the market map, and then there's also a directory, to be able to go in and bookmark like certain companies so that you can come back and see it later. I think people are just there's so much out there that they're having just a hard time saying, what is this? How do I categorize this? And then how do I evaluate it to see if it might work for me? So I see that happening. Somebody told me yesterday that last year, there were 1 million software companies founded worldwide. Over 1 million software companies. Because if you think about it, you've got, it's AWS and a dream. That's what I like to say. And you look at it and you're like, hey, I want to be the next, Mark Benioff, right? So, now I can start a SaaS company in, a few minutes. The real differentiator will be, are you solving a problem? Are you so sticky that, like in our business, the SDRs cannot live without you? The SDR managers cannot think about living without you. Then you're going to differentiate.
Yeah. So that brings me to my next question. I want to get into some more tactical things here. Now that we've established a little bit of a baseline of kind of your perspective, where Tenbound fits and your view on things. In your research around technology vendors trying to deploy their solutions out to SDR teams and revenue teams, what are you seeing the most successful vendors do that ultimately lead to those higher adoption rates within their customers becoming that tool that they can't live without? Like, what are the winners doing differently than everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it boils down to 3 letters: PLG, man, PLG all day. So if you're not familiar with that, product-led growth is the big thing right now that we're seeing. And they used to call it freemium, 5 or 10 years ago, but you got to get the product into the hands of the end user for free, make it seamless, make it bone simple to use, and make the product experience so amazing that they can never think of using anything else. And then at some point, they're going to bump up against a paywall, and they're going to have to go in and talk to their manager about getting a bigger, enterprise package. There's that consumerization of software that's happening right now. I mean, look at our lives, right? We buy stuff on Amazon, we order stuff on Uber and Instacart, and people want that same experience in the software. So it's and it dude, I mean, you're working on it right now. It presents incredible challenges because it's resource intensive at the beginning of the life of the software company. And your product has to be freaking amazing and easy to use immediately, right outside the gate. So that's really, really hard. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've been saying for a while, buyers are buying today like they make consumer decisions. And so vendors need to sell and recognize that the way buyers, back when we were selling marketing automation, David, we talked about the buyer's journey has changed. And it's kind of changed again, right? Like the B2C behaviors that people had now are applying to B2B behaviors, and sales teams and vendors need to kind of change their approach to helping people explore their products and use their products. So I think that's great. Yeah, product-led growth. We'll take that away as a takeaway.
The other thing, that might be handy for folks is think about communities. Communities are just red hot right now, and in that we're all stuck at home, right, to some extent, and you want to go online and be able to connect with your peers, and some of the most important research and vendor conversations are happening within communities because people feel like it's a neutral, safe zone where they can get real opinions from real people. Even review sites at this point are kind of like iffy because there's a kind of a lot of weird stuff that happens behind the scenes on review sites. But in communities, it's still like, hey, what do you use for conversational intelligence? What are you using for sales enablement? You know, and if you hear kind of the same name popping up from people that you trust, then you're more likely to go to the website and check it out. So, you know, I wrote a blog actually on how to, like, if you're an SDR or a salesperson, how to work with communities in a way, because if you go on there and start pitching your product, you're going to get banned on the
Yeah.
good. So you got to be really careful about that. But that's something to look at if folks have not invested in those.
Yeah, it absolutely, you start to see it on like Modern Sales Pros, right? It's a group I'm a part of. And so I
Dude,
mean, they're
I've been publicly humiliated on Modern Sales Pros like probably 5 times in front
really,
of 11,000 people. And I wasn't trying to pitch. I just didn't answer enough. You know, I didn't put in enough like detail, or I was, you know, promoting a product. But I swear to God, you know, if Peter's listening to this, I wasn't trying to. But if you go on there and you say, you know, ABSTRAKT is the best, you know, product, you will get banned, and
oh yeah.
that's a good thing, because you want to
Yep.
build that trust in the community.
100%. Yeah. You want that endorsement to come from a user within the community itself. And I think that's why groups like that are so powerful, because they're not afraid to call people out who are promoting their own stuff. So I tend to agree with that. So moving on to a couple other things I want to chat about, for the companies that you work with, that maybe have SDR teams. What are they doing differently to maybe block out the noise and really start to um, hone in on what that evaluation process looks like? They're knowing the right questions to ask. They're building the right, I don't hate RFPs, but they're building the right RFPs that will ultimately find the right solutions for their team. Like, what are they doing differently that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, and it's the most boring answer in the world, but unfortunately, it all comes back to project management. I think that in working with these teams for 5 years now at Tenbound, and then running teams before, it kind of dawned on me that the key to successful sales development in general is strong project management. And so you can apply that obviously to the messaging and the scripts and the playbook and the workflow and everything that you're doing. Consistent A/B testing, and not just like throwing stuff at the wall and then moving on to the next thing, which is what most, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, lower performing companies do. But having somebody who's like week after week, month after month, figuring out what's working and what's not, and then iterating. And so when it comes to evaluating vendors to help, it's the same thing. What is the project? What is the end goal? What is the milestones going to be that determine whether this product is going to be helping us, or it's just like a hindrance, or nobody's using it, and that type of thing. And then really partnering with the vendor to say, like, okay, we're going to do a proof of concept, you know, over the next 90 days. And here's what we would like to see specifically from using your product. And we want this uplift, or we want this percentage, and things like that. And we're going to work really closely with your CSM, you know, to make sure that if we're not getting that we tweak and we give you a chance. You know, I think where people go wrong with this is, especially going back to the product-led growth, if there's nobody like, you know, kind of quarterbacking the implementation of the software, it can easily get dropped, because it's not like, it's not just part of your usual, like, I mean, you know, think about like if you decide I want to start drinking more green smoothies, and you know, I want to do that, and so you buy the Ninja and you get some kale and you do all this stuff, and then it's not part of your routine. So next thing you know, you got some rotten kale and a Ninja. It's the same thing. The horrible analogy, but you know what I'm saying.
That's, yeah. I mean, it has to become part of your daily habit, your daily routine. And it's interesting. So finding that balance between, can we get something that's easy to use, but also like, how do we inject the customer success support, almost mentoring of how to use the product model into that, right? I think there's a healthy balance there that needs to be found. to ultimately drive towards that. And I think something else that you hit on is like a proof of concept or pilot, right? There's, in my experience in sales, there's been such an important element of a sale taking place where there's like an annual contract or a multi-year contract because vendors need to show that they're locking in that revenue. And I think buyer behaviors has changed, as we've talked about, where people are like, no, I want to try it first. Like, show me it works before I ask, before you make me sign up for a year. And companies being okay with that. And then it almost puts the onus on the organization. Like, you better deliver now. Like, you want to keep my business? Like, make sure the product works. Make sure I know how to use it. Make sure it becomes an integral part of my day. So,
I mean, there's a lot of moving parts, right? Because the person on the client end, you know, they're buying your product in order to get rid of some problem that they have and some headache. And so what you're saying is like, hey, we got to make this a project. We've got to really be working together closely over the next 3 months to make sure that you're wildly successful using our thing. And, you know, if you get somebody good on that end, you will make it wildly successful because you got a great product and a great team. If it's somebody who's just sort of, they're not responsive, they're doing other stuff, you know, then it's kind of like out of your control, you know, as the vendor. And then, you know, on the PLG side, you know, if a bunch of SDRs, you know, download your product and start using it, you got to have a strategy for like, let's wrangle it up. Let's all get on the phone. Let's create the project because it's decentralized, you know, and that presents a bunch of challenges. So yeah, it's tricky.
yeah, absolutely. Well, jumping into our final question, David, one thing I'm noticing a lot more, sales leaders are getting their SDRs involved in the actual evaluation process. Like, they're bringing SDRs onto demos. And I personally love that because it shows that they recognize that this person is going to be using the product every single day, and they trust that judgment. Are you seeing this as a trend in the industry? And if not, like, what is your cry out to sales leaders to like let them like make sure they know that this is important for SDRs to become part of like an evaluation process?
Yeah, I mean that's huge, right? Because we're talking about the macro trend of B2B software becoming a B2C, you know, consumerization purchase, right? So if you think about it, like in the old days, the VP of sales would go on and take a bunch of calls, go out to dinner, you know, back in the and then buy this product and push it out to the sales team, and the sales team would be like, dude, this thing sucks, this doesn't work, you know, and they locked in on a contract. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of companies still work like that, but I don't think Generation Z and, you know, Generation Y or whatever are gonna go for that, because it's just like you've got to have the end user involved, right? And even like product-led growth, right? It's all about the end user trickling it back upstairs. But if your product's not like that, then you know, you've got to bring the SDRs in to evaluate it and just be like, hey, what do you think? You're going to be using this thing every day. You know, does it work? And get their feedback on it. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we've been fortunate here at ABSTRAKT. We've had, I think, 10 or so demos where the SDR comes onto the demo, and halfway through their demo, they're like, hey, we could use it for this. Hey, we could use it for that. This would help me with this. Hey, we're bringing on a new person next week. This is how we could train them. And it almost becomes like, you know, the sales leader now is almost being forced to buy the solution because the entire SDR team wants it and sees value and has already kind of taken some ownership of it. So I really like that. So David, as we wrap up, I got a couple big takeaways, and I think there's kind of an overarching takeaway from our conversation today. And that's really that B2B buying behavior has almost shifted to more of a B2C buying behavior. Consumerization of how people are buying software is really kind of the overarching theme here in my mind. And kind of next step below that would be that product-led growth. And then, you know, can you fit a freemium model in there for vendors who are trying to sell to that end customer? If not, how are you making it super easy? And then ultimately, all of that is really designed around how do we make the end customer, how do we make it easy for them to evaluate our solution? And are they project managing? Are we helping them understand how to project manage it, buying a solution like ours? If people have never bought your software before, giving them a list of here's the questions you should be asking. Here's the things that you should have in place. Vendors should be helping people make these buying decisions, even if it leads to them not buying their software, because ultimately that's just gonna, karma, right? We're gonna put out good stuff into the world and help the sales development world as a whole just progress if we start helping vendors make the right decisions. So really, really good takeaways, David. I appreciate the insight and thought from you today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, and anytime. I'm glad to jump on and talk through this stuff. It's great.
Cool. Well, for anybody who wants to get in touch with yourself and maybe learn more about Tenbound and maybe see what you can do to help them out, what's the best way to get in touch with you, David?
Yeah, absolutely. So just tenbound.com, tenbound.com. There's tons of free resources and free content there. And happy to help with any of this stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today, David. It was awesome. And we'll be talking soon, sir. Bye.